Good night, the audience. Almost good morning. So this will be a microscopic examination of 3 slides. We'll do it quickly. One is already on the tray. So I'll remind you where we left last time. On the there was like an agenda video. The weekend was like unfortunately, it was not too productive because of the football was kind of like many tournament, many matches. But maybe we'll try to do some science now. As you see, it's like we are heading towards like a new kind of a construction. Of course, not new in general sense, but נתחדשו גזירותיו, new, relatively like in the last couple, relatively new. So the idea is to work in kind of like a mode that is more correct and more similar to things that we've done in the past, which means a mode that we will not use the neurons. Like what you've done recently is both create neurons, enlarge neurons, and use it for the football game. But this is not like it's kind of like a hack, and it's not like זה כמו משהו כזה, זה שפצור כזה, או לא יודע, כזה שנמתח יותר ממה שהיה אמור. Like, so the correct way to do it like in two different stages. One, like, when you actually use the neurons for the football, and one when you create and enlarge it. So, how will we do the create and enlarge? We will use, first of all, I'll say that the colors means, I don't want to kind of get into it too much. I want to get because this was already discussed in the past. Just say that the colors like they have meanings. Like, it's not like the random colors. And also the grill, the fact that it's silver, it's supposed to be as clean as possible, and just silver. This also it's important. I mean, sometimes the grill contains also other stuff. This was demonstrated in other experiments, previous experiments. But I mean, it's not relevant now. So we'll have like 3 containers, like the big ones, relatively big ones. The other ones, they will be put on top of the grill, and on the bottom of the grill we'll have like smaller containers. The smaller containers will use it like they will be kind of like the energy source, and I'll use like mostly mixture from from the containers that that we used like recently on the plate, on the hot plate. Of course, we'll leave it with more oil, so it will be more kind of like energetic. This will be placed there, and the top, what we've got is, so what we have here, so just a little bit, I mean, it's not completely identical, but they are like number 1, 2, 3, and mostly what, I mean, it's like I placed like in each, like maybe like a half a spoon from the mixture, from the mixture, I mean, one of the mixture that was like more successful, like in the enlargement, experiment very recently, and like a couple of like spoons of oil, and also a little bit of maybe like a spoon of like water, and also salt and sodium bicarbonate, and also I heated that on and on kind of like on stove, like electric stove, but it's a galash from galash, it's like just but I mean these things happen. I don't it just went out, so it should be, I mean just you should take care and see what won't happen, but it's not like terrible, if it happens, I mean it's not like toxic or something, not be worried. It's like it's כמו תבשיל שגולש. Anyway, much still is here. I should say that the idea is to use heat from, use the 2 types of energizing. That this was always discussed in the past, so forgive me for not reiterating everything. There is like, direct, there is like the two type of energizing. So first of all, of course, we will try to keep, to keep it like, a low flame, just, just to cook it a little bit. Like, so it won't, overflow again. We don't want it to overflow. And we will not, and in that way, we will not, of course, we will not waste neurons. I mean, a little bit will be wasted because of evaporation of the water. But water, so why did we put water in the first place? Because water is actually helpful for, it's like a good, it's like, it's a good, like, it's very, like, it's water and salt, and preferably if you can get it, salt water from the ocean or from the Mediterranean, it's like a very good, like, ingredient. But let's leave it now. It's a complicated topic. Again, let's just leave it for the way it is. So a little bit of water, but because of the water content, I mean, there will be some evaporation, and so we'll lose some of it. So it will be like using it in the football game, but hopefully most of it will not be used, will not be evaporated. What we also do is we will actually light the stuff in the container itself. Probably we'll do it like a little bit like after some of the water is already evaporated, so it will be easier for that to actually catch the fire. But we will do it only in container 1 and 2, but not in 3. And it will be like a short burn, because even if it's too much, so it's just like the previous kind of like setup in which we use the Neos, and we don't want to, because then you use it for the football, but you don't. That's not what we want. So why do we burn from the inside and not just cook it? Again, the hypothesis that was laid many times in this channel is that energizing both from outside and from inside like energizing from the inside is like the sun, okay? That it loses part of the material through the process of energizing. This is comparable to the burning of the mixture in the container, as we've done it several last couple of days. This is like the sun, and the other way is like the moon, which is cooked by the sun. Like the symbol is cooked by the sun, but does not lose material, and this is comparable to cooking, just pretty much cooking, simply cooking. The hypothesis that was actually laid several times is that when you do both, it's actually much preferable. You get much better results with regards to the creation of the Neos and possibly other effects as well. So I think this, it might be kind of like a good opportunity to actually test it. From time to time, I kind of try to test assumptions, even though it's not like exactly the purpose now. What we want is just to create big Neos in order to pit it against monsters in the Colosseum. Yes, but it's not there to taint the experiment too much, because we use 3 containers, and so it's kind of it would be I feel like it, from time to time I like to test it, even assumption that I'm kind of I already arrived on some that assumption, but I want to kind of reevaluate it. So it will be a good way to evaluate it, to reevaluate it. So what I expect to see is that we'll get better results in the 2 containers, 1 and 2, in which we also burn the mixture. But in any way, we'll do it for a short while, because otherwise we just lose everything. It should be done for a short while. Otherwise, just it will be used for the football and we will not get good results at all. Should be said that even the previous experiments we did have kind of like the moon kind of energizing, because we use hot plates. So everything is kind of energized with some heat from from below all the time, but it's not it's not serious. It's mostly helpful in order to keep the mixture liquid, because the mixture kind of hard, because first of all the oil hardens, and second, I sometimes add a little bit of beeswax, not too much, but even just a little bit of beeswax is enough. Even 5% by volume beeswax, and of 95%, or just any kind of cooking oil is enough to make it very solid when it cools, and then it's problem. It's better that it's kept not solid. So that's why the habit is kind of it's which is almost always on. It's almost always hot. I mean, it's used for that. I mean, it's like designed for that. And because of that, I mean, the mixtures are kept like, in pretty much like, just a second, I need to kind of like, just one moment. The mixtures are kept like in not too hardened, which is beneficial for much of what we do. But now we'll have like a serious, like, outside energizing, because we will use like the containers from below. Again, if you want to imitate it or to try this yourself, please pay attention to the colors and to the formation. I mean, especially if you're new to such things, because they mean something, and also to the size of the containers, and also to the shape of the containers, which is the most very important. Like, we use round shape. This is very, it's not just it's not random. And if you use other type of containers, you might get very different result or not get anything at all. Depends on what you do. So just take, put it into consideration that, if you want to imitate me and you're new to the channel, try to do as much, if it's the first step, your first step, the best is just to do, pretty much exactly what I do. And, even though I do not, it's not my way to say, to give you kind of, algorithms. It's not what I've done, I always try to, I don't know, tell you just, do hocus pocus, I don't know, like hocus pocus. That's why I formulated the symbolic language, and I change it all the time. I try to upgrade it, and I share my, my kind of conclusions, because I don't want to. Sometimes I say I'm like the warlock of fight of mountain, but I don't really like to conceive myself, conceptualize myself as a warlock. No, this is science, and the language is important because, for many reasons, but one of the reasons is to be able to communicate it, what I've done, what I do to other people, so they can experiment and understand the rationale. Of course, the symbolic language, is evolving by itself, but you have to have some kind of language, even if it's like intermediary, in order to for other people to be able not just to imitate exactly what you do, but also to understand why it's like that, and maybe try to make it better, to improve on the things that I do. But if you don't have any kind of knowledge on the symbolic language and you didn't watch any of the videos, just try to just copy what I do, and try to get your hands on the videos. There are many videos in which I discuss symbolic language, and just so you'll learn, what's the rationale and what can be improved, etc., etc. So this is a microscopic simulation of the, this is like a reference. It's called the reference. Like the before, there is like before and after. So when I use the term reference in many of the videos in this channel, what I mean is this is like the before, I would say, like the before, video. So what we want to do is to verify that there are some kind of neurons in the mixture. Again, it was widely diluted, because it was just maybe half a spoon from the good stuff from the containers, but all the rest is several times oil and water, and also it's overflowed, so we lost some of it. So it's kind of very much diluted, but if we still have some kind of neurons in it, it's enough. We don't want much. We don't want many, but we need some kind of quantity in order for them to work. They will not just appear ex nihilo. But if it's a low amount, it's okay, because again, it's like a reference, it's like the before, and then we'll see what happens after we actually run the experiment. Okay, so I added a little bit of water, just boiled water to the everything Y, which is almost completely done, and I cannot find the methylene blue, but there was very little bit left, so I added water, and now I have much more, but much diluted. Hopefully we'll still have a good effect. It's a dirty trick in order to multiply the quantities to add at least 10 times or maybe 30 times, but of course much diluted. But perhaps it's enough to give some effect of getting better contrast and just getting the scenery more lively. So let's take a look. This is slide number 1, then we'll see number 2 and number 3. 64 magnification. אז השכנים עושים כל מיני טריקים, תעלולים פסיכולוגיים, ומבחר צ'יקו ודיקו. זה החיים שלנו כל הזמן, טריגרים, שיגועים, בח, 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 בח. פה ולשון, לשון ופה, יצורי פה ויצורי לשון. Okay. Well, that's a beautiful one, actually. Very nice one. And there are some that I don't understand if they're like neos that are, or sometimes it means it's difficult to understand what you actually watch. There are all sorts of things that, I'm not sure what it is. Usually, it happens less and less, but it still sometimes happens that I just don't understand like what actually are these neos or bubbles. I'm not sure. I must admit, I'm not sure. Some of them are neos that seems to be like in the close formation, but some might be just bubbles. So let's get back to 64. I'm not entirely sure like what actually is it that are these things like. So this is a neos. This is a neos certainly. It's cute, but it's big on. This is another one, very beautiful one. Some are just misshaped. Because they're just out of the crucible. Which makes sense. So it's a good mixture because we see like a very nice amount of very big ones, very nice amount of very big ones, impressive amount of very big ones. And now and I don't see many small ones, even though there are all sorts of things that are I'm not sure, but we see many big ones. These are all like this is exactly what we wanted, and this makes sense because it was taken from when the experiment was most successful, was producing large size from the last couple of days. So that's what I wanted. Okay, so it's great actually. So it's a very healthy amount of big ones. Regarding small ones, not many actually, not many, but nice big ones. Another one. So these are also nice. All of these are nice actually. It's like a good amount. Although a little bit of small ones. It's a good amount. Certainly a good amount. So we continue with that. They're actually very fat, maybe because of the sodium bicarbonate. Some energizing happened because of I started on the hot plate, not that plate, it's much hotter than the other flat plate, it's the stove, the electric stove. Okay, very nice slide, very successful I would say. Now let's take a quick look at number 2 and then number 3. So the nice, nice show of not the giant fleet, but the big fleet. I would say definitely the big fleet, definitely. Again, it's 64 magnification, so it's it's a small, it's like a low magnification, which means that these are big creatures. That's a small one. I mean, medium size one. Smaller ones. Nice. This is the nice one. Yeah, very nice. It's about the same as the other one. These are also nice. So again, the big fleet. Not many very small ones, but yes, certainly it's the big fleet. Very nice. And this is a huge one. Okay, so this is what I call number size 8, which is very, very nice actually. I call this one. This is size 8. This is like in 150. Very nice. Sizes, I mean, when I say size, I refer to the radius, not to how fat they are. I don't have classification for how fat they are, but this should also be done because they vary greatly in how fat. This one are super fat, for example. They've eaten tremendous amount of sodium bicarbonate and they become super fat. If the audience want to kind of suggest how to categorize the fatness, it will be. It's okay. Please do. You see, it's like these are super like more simonim, they are like the everything is the ring, and these are super fat. So if you want any kind of to suggest categorization, please you can still try to do so, and maybe if it will be picked by the by the editorial, your place in your name will be secured in the history of science, which is amazing. It doesn't need to be like numbers or words. It could be like numbers or characters. It could be like names of names of animals, like whales and monkeys, like bears, with regards to how fat they are. Again, fatness is so here we see many more like smaller ones, which is also nice. Fatness is defined by the the internal radius, divided by the external radius, and the kind of and the lower the fraction, the smaller the fraction is, the fatter it is. If it's like one or almost one, which means that it's just the ring is almost invisible, so it's super thin. So actually, wow, this is very nice, but I cannot focus on it too much because it's it's at the end of the slide, so I cannot get there. So this is actually a great mixture. Mostly with regards to the size, it's impressive. It makes sense because I use the tamtzit, the best part from from the container that they've shown the best results with regard to magnifying in the last couple of days, and I placed just the best part the upper layer in kind of another container, a new container, and I've used almost all of it. It wasn't much, maybe and I use almost all of it now for these three. For the 3 newly created containers, and so it's actually very nice. This mixture number 3 was actually different in the way that it was much more dense than the others. Maybe just I didn't place as much oil and water as in the other 2, so it was much more dense, and you could actually watch it in the slide itself. It's kind of the slide is you see that it's brown as opposed to this one that are almost transparent, translucent. This one is much you see it's much heavier and you actually see many more, not only mirrors but duds. This was taken from. It was my intention, but I took 3 samples, so So it turns out this was taken, like, from a very kind of like dense, part of the whole mixture, which means that, like, this is like where, like, most of the job was, like, performed, which means that we see tremendous amount of duds, which, like, many neurons that are not created, like, that they were kind of like half created. And sometimes it's difficult to actually know, like, what duds are and what don't not. I mean, unless you just wait like 12 hours and then, I mean, the duds just dissipate in the mixture. But we see tremendous amount, and they're big ones, but I mean, no, many of them are probably duds, but it's difficult to say. But certainly it was taken, like, from the very dense place, like, in the mixture. We see very large ones, kind of like trying to be formed, and even if just 5% of that is like the actual neurons and not like duds, still it's like a very nice mixture. Very nice mixture. Like, this reminds me of, like, of the many electrolysis, like, samples. Like, if you remember, if you followed me, that, I mean, like the electrolysis samples, I mean, when you just finish your electrolysis and you take a sample from the foam, it looks a little bit like that. Not exactly, but a little bit. Anyway, great mixture. The problem is it's not exactly like, I mean, so I'll change, like, the outline of the experiment. We will light both this one, number 3, number 1, and not number 2, because this one it's too different from number 1, 1, the 2. And if we add, like, if we add, like, the variable of lighting inside, we might get very different result, because it's like it's a different mixture. So it's best, like, to differentiate between 1 and 2 that are now almost the same, than, between, like, 1, 2, and 3. So 1 and 3 will be energized from both below and within, and number 2 only from below. What I wanted to do, but before we finish with that, is just maybe just zoom in a little bit to see, like, what's going on inside the mixture. שכנים נותנים רמזים, לנסוע, ללכת, לברוח, עוד מעט יתפסו אותך, עוד מעט יתפסו אותך, עוד מעט יתפסו אותך. יש להם רק דבר אחד בראש, ושום דבר לא יוציא להם את זה החוצה, את האובססיה. עוד מעט יתפסו אותך, בגיל 41, עוד מעט יתפסו אותך. These people are psychopaths. Unbelievable psychopaths. So this is like 600 magnification. Let's see if we can get anything. Okay, so we do see the small ones, like, in the 600. Let's create flow. Okay, nice. So it's pretty much as expected. Okay, so next we'll run the experiment. It's not going to be a long one, because, again, I don't want to burn too much to cook too much, because then it will evaporate. But I do want to cook it a little bit, and also burn from the inside. Again, slide 1 and 3. Containers 1 and 3 will be burned a little bit from the inside. Not much, but just a little, and see how it affects, like, most importantly, what's the difference between 1 and 2? That would be, interesting to see, because right now they're almost the same. So we'll see, like, what's the difference with or without, like, internal energizing, using fire. So keep with us, and you can suggest names for, categorization of, like, fatness of the neurons. And hopefully, like, maybe in, like, a maximum in an hour or so, we'll upload, like, the results of this experiment.